Beloved, I need you to lean in right now because this is not an ordinary moment and this is not an ordinary prayer. Today, heaven is alert, angels are on assignment, and the Spirit of the living God is ready to surround you with a shield that no weapon can penetrate. Whatever tried to follow you into this day must stop at the border of God's authority. Whatever plotted against your life, your family, your mind, or your destiny is about to collide with divine resistance. This is your moment to step under God's covering, not tomorrow, not later, but now. I sense in my spirit that many of you have been feeling exposed, vulnerable, attacked in ways you couldn't explain. Some of you have been fighting battles you never announce, smiling in public while warring in private. But hear me clearly, God does not leave his people uncovered. There is a shield that surrounds the righteous, a defense that stands when human strength fails, a supernatural perimeter that darkness cannot cross. Today we activate that shield, and everything assigned to harm you will be rerouted by divine power. As you listen, don't just hear these words. Position yourself, open your heart, align your faith, because protection is not just about survival, it's about preservation of purpose. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't valuable, and the pressure you've been under is proof that your life carries weight in the spirit realm. Today, God is reinforcing your borders, strengthening your gates, and declaring that what concerns you concerns him. Before we go deeper, I want you to participate in this atmosphere of faith. If you are ready to step fully under God's shield of protection, like this video right now, subscribe to this channel for daily prayer, because consistency in prayer creates consistency in victory. Then type amen in the comments as a declaration that you agree with what God is about to do, and comment one thing you're believing in God for today, no matter how big or how small. Stay right here, don't rush, don't scroll away, because what is about to be released will bring peace where there has been fear, confidence where there has been uncertainty, and divine security where there has been anxiety. You are not alone, you're not forgotten, and you're not unprotected. Today, you are stepping into a realm where God himself becomes your shield and your exceeding great reward. When you consciously place your life under God's authority, something powerful and unseen begins to happen in the realm of the spirit. This is not about fear, and it is not about hiding. It is about alignment. Authority always produces covering, and covering always produces protection. Many people want God's shield without God's governance, but true protection is activated when you surrender control and say, Lord, you lead, you rule, you reign over every area of my life. The moment you do that, heaven responds, because heaven recognizes order, and order invites divine intervention. God does not force his covering on a resistant will, but he rushes to surround a submitted heart. When you align your decisions, your desires, and your direction with his authority, you step into a spiritual jurisdiction where darkness no longer has legal access to your life. There is a difference between knowing God and yielding to God. Knowing him gives you comfort, but yielding to him gives you coverage. When you yield, you are saying, I trust you more than my instincts, more than my emotions, more than my understanding. That trust becomes the doorway through which supernatural protection flows. Many attacks are not personal, they are jurisdictional. They occur because a person is operating outside of divine alignment, unknowingly exposed to battles they were never meant to fight. But when you come under God's authority, you move into a protected territory where battles are intercepted before they manifest, where harm is deflected before it touches your body, your mind, your family, or your future. God's authority is not heavy, it is safe. His rule is not restrictive, it is preservative. Just like a child is safest when close to a loving parent, your soul is safest when anchored in God's will. When you say yes to his authority, you are not losing freedom, you are gaining security. His commands are not chains, they are boundaries. And boundaries are expressions of love. A boundary says, you are too valuable to be exposed. When God establishes authority over your life, he also establishes limits. around what the enemy can do to you. There are attacks that were planned, strategies that were designed, but they lose their effectiveness the moment you come under divine rule. Supernatural protection is not activated by panic prayers in moments of crisis alone. It is sustained by daily submission. Every time you choose obedience over compromise, you reinforce your shield. Every time you choose faith over fear, you strengthen your covering. Every time you surrender your plans and say, not my will, but yours, you are layering your life with divine defense. Protection is not just something God gives. It is something you steward through alignment. The closer you walk with him, the more you remain under his authority, the more consistent your protection becomes. There are people listening who have been wondering why certain attacks suddenly stopped without explanation. It was not coincidence, it was alignment. You shifted something spiritually when you chose obedience, when you forgave instead of retaliating, when you prayed instead of reacting, when you trusted God in uncertainty. Those moments positioned you under his authority, and his authority activated his shield. The enemy only has access where there is agreement. And when you withdraw agreement from fear, sin, doubt, and disobedience, you revoke his access entirely. God's authority also brings clarity. Many dangers are avoided not because they were removed, but because God redirected you. He closed doors you wanted open, delayed plans you were ready to execute, and interrupted paths you thought were right. Those interruptions were not setbacks, they were shields in motion. Authority does not always feel comfortable, but it is always protective. Sometimes God protects you by saying no, by slowing you down, by changing your route. When you submit to his authority, you learn to trust his timing and his wisdom, even when you do not understand his methods. When you place your life under God's authority, you also place your thoughts under his rule. A protected life begins with a protected mind. Many attacks enter through unchecked thoughts, anxious imaginations, and fear-driven assumptions. But when God governs your mind, peace becomes your default state. His authority quiets internal chaos. It stabilizes emotions, calms nervous systems, and restores clarity. Protection is not just about what happens around you, it is about what happens within you. A guarded mind is a fortified life. There is a spiritual confidence that rises when you know you are under divine authority. You stop moving through life defensively and start walking with assurance. You no longer react to every threat because you trust the one who watches over you. That confidence itself becomes a deterrent to the enemy. Darkness is drawn to fear, but it retreats from faith. When you live under God's authority, fear loses its voice and faith becomes your language. You begin to declare truth instead of rehearsing threats, and your words align with heaven's decree. God's authority also covers generationally. When you submit your life to him, you are not only protecting yourself, you are creating a covering for those connected to you. Your obedience becomes a hedge around your children, your family, your household. Spiritual authority flows through covenant. And when you honor God's authority, his protection extends beyond you. There are dangers your children will never encounter, attacks your family will never experience, simply because you chose alignment. You may never see all the disasters that were prevented, but heaven keeps record of every interception. This is why daily surrender matters. Authority is not a one-time decision, it is a posture. Each day you wake up and say, Lord, lead me today. You renew your covering. Each day you choose humility over pride, trust over control, obedience over rebellion. You remain under his shield. Protection is not something you chase. It is something you stay under. The safest place you will ever be is not a location, it is a position, the position of submission to God's authority. There are moments when life feels uncertain, when threats feel close, when the future feels unpredictable. In those moments, the temptation is to take control, to rely on self, to operate independently. But independence is not strength in the spirit realm, alignment is. When you release control and rest under God's authority, you exchange anxiety for assurance. You stop striving and start trusting. You allow God to fight battles you were never meant to fight. Supernatural protection is not loud, it is often quiet. It works in the unseen, in the unannounced, in the unnoticed. It is the accident that never happened, the illness that never progressed, the relationship that ended before it destroyed you, the decision you didn't make that would have cost you everything. All of these are expressions of God's authority actively guarding your life. When you look back, you may begin to recognize moments where God stepped in, redirected you, restrained you, or delayed you. And those moments were evidence that you were under His rule. As you consciously place your life under God's authority, you also learn discernment. You become sensitive to what belongs in your life and what does not. Discernment itself is a form of protection. You begin to sense when something is off, when a door is dangerous, when an opportunity carries hidden cost. That sensitivity is not fear, it is wisdom flowing from alignment. God does not just shield you from harm, He teaches you how to avoid it. Living under God's authority does not mean you will never face challenges, but it does mean challenges will not have the final word. Attacks may come, but they will not succeed. Storms may arise, but they will not sink you. When you are under His authority, you are never fighting alone. Heaven stands behind every step of obedience. Angels are dispatched not because you are perfect, but because you are aligned. Protection follows obedience, not performance. There is rest in this truth. You do not have to constantly defend yourself, explain yourself, or justify yourself. God's authority does that for you. When you let Him govern your life, He becomes responsible for your safety. That responsibility is not a burden to Him, it is His delight. He watches over those who trust Him, not with reluctance, but with love. His shield is not thin, it is not fragile, it is not temporary. It is strong, enduring, and responsive to every act of surrender. As you listen and allow these words to settle, something is aligning within you. Your spirit is choosing trust. Your heart is choosing surrender. Your life is choosing divine order. And in that choice, protection is already activating. Layers of grace, layers of peace, layers of divine defense quietly forming around you as you rest under His authority, knowing that the one who rules over all also watches over you, guiding your steps, guarding your path, strengthening your confidence, covering your life as you remain positioned under His rule, and His presence continues to surround you with safety, stability, and an unshakable sense of being held, guarded, and kept in every moment of your journey under the authority that never fails and never sleeps. Divine protection is not reactive, it is proactive, and that truth alone changes how you understand the nature of God's covering over your life. God does not wait for danger to announce itself before He responds. Long before you become aware of a threat, long before fear has a chance to rise, long before harm gets close enough to be recognized, divine protection is already in motion. There are attacks you see, and there are attacks you will never see. And the mercy of God is that many of the most dangerous ones never make it into your awareness because they are intercepted before they reach your destiny. What you don't experience is often just as significant as what you survive. There are visible attacks that come through circumstances, people, systems, words, environments, and situations that feel tangible and obvious. But there are also invisible attacks, subtle strategies designed to weaken your faith, distort your perception, drain your joy, confuse your decisions, and delay your purpose. These invisible attacks often come quietly, disguised as normal thoughts, reasonable fears, or harmless compromises. Yet divine protection does not only stand against what you recognize as danger, it also blocks what tries to blend in unnoticed. God's shield is intelligent. It discerns intent. It identifies what does not belong and stops it at the perimeter of your calling. Many people assume protection only matters when life feels threatening, but the truth is that the most critical protection happens in seasons that seem calm. It is during ordinary days that destiny is either preserved or compromised. Divine protection works continuously, silently filtering what is allowed to influence you. There are conversations you were not part of, decisions made by others that could have affected you, opportunities that looked appealing but carried hidden consequences, and paths that seemed harmless but led toward loss. God's protection quietly redirected you without explanation, without drama, without requiring your understanding. Invisible attacks often target the mind first. Before anything manifests in the physical realm, it seeks access to your thoughts, your emotions, your self-perception. Fear, doubt, comparison, discouragement, and hopelessness rarely arrive loudly. They slip in as whispers, suggestions, and internal narratives. Divine protection blocks many of these before they become patterns. Sometimes you cannot explain why a thought did not take root, why anxiety did not overwhelm you, why despair did not settle in, but that restraint was not accidental. It was God's protection interrupting an assignment before it gained momentum. There are spiritual forces that operate beyond what human eyes can see. Not everything that opposes you shows up as a visible enemy. Some resistance is environmental, some is emotional, some is relational, some is internal. Divine protection recognizes the origin of each threat and addresses it at the appropriate level. God does not merely shield you from outcomes. He blocks access points. He closes doors the enemy hoped to enter through. He disrupts timing. He creates delays that save your life. He shifts circumstances so that an attack misses its moment. Many times you have arrived late to something and felt frustrated, not realizing that your delay was your defense. You have been excluded from situations and felt rejected, not knowing you were being spared. You have lost interest in things you once desired, unaware that your loss of appetite was divine protection disengaging you from harm. Protection does not always feel like rescue. Sometimes it feels like inconvenience, interruption, or disappointment. Yet behind every divine interruption is an unseen interception. Destiny is not fragile, but it is valuable. Anything valuable attracts attention, and anything with purpose attracts opposition. Divine protection does not eliminate opposition. It neutralizes its effectiveness. Attacks may be formed, but they are rendered powerless before they reach you. Plans may be set in motion, but they lose their alignment before they manifest. Words may be spoken, but they fall to the ground without effect. The shield of God does not only absorb impact, it causes tragedies to collapse before impact is possible. There are people who wonder why they feel peace, even when circumstances suggest panic. That peace is not ignorance, it is protection. There are moments when logic says fear should dominate, but instead there is calm. That calm is evidence that something has already been handled in the unseen. Divine protection often shows up as emotional stability in unstable seasons. It guards your heart so that external chaos does not become internal disorder. The enemy seeks to overwhelm, but God's shield maintains equilibrium. Invisible attacks also come through distraction. Not every attack is meant to destroy you outright. Some are designed to delay you slowly. Wasted time, waste-directed energy, misplaced priorities, and subtle compromises can be more damaging than open conflict. Divine protection blocks distractions that would drain you without you realizing it. It removes your desire for things that would dilute your focus. It shifts your attention away from noise and toward purpose. You may not always know what you were spared from, but you will notice clarity increasing as distractions lose their hold. God's protection also operates through discernment. Discernment is a form of defense that allows you to sense danger without needing evidence. You feel unsettled without explanation. You hesitate without logic. You pause without clarity. Those moments are not weakness, they are divine signals. Protection often communicates before understanding catches up. When you honor that discernment, you stay aligned with the shield that is already active around you. There are attacks that never reach your destiny because they are stopped at the level of agreement. Nothing can advance without consent, and divine protection withdraws consent on your behalf. When fear tries to partner with your thoughts, protection interrupts the agreement. When bitterness seeks access through offense, protection blocks alignment. When confusion attempts to settle into your decision-making, protection restores clarity. God's shield guards not just your circumstances, but your consent. Many people assume spiritual warfare is loud, dramatic, and exhausting, but much of God's warfare on your behalf is quiet and efficient. He does not announce every victory. He does not inform you of every danger. He simply handles it. Angels are dispatched, assignments are canceled, trajectories are altered, all without your involvement. You sleep while heaven works. You move through your day unaware that something meant to harm you was dismantled hours earlier. Divine protection also extends to what you carry within you. Your gifts, your calling, your potential, your future are guarded. Not everyone gets access to what God has placed inside you. Some people are removed not because they are evil, but because they are not safe for what you carry. Protection sometimes looks like separation. It creates distance where intimacy would have caused damage. It preserves your destiny by limiting exposure. There are seasons when attacks intensify, not because protection has weakened, but because destiny is approaching a critical point. As you move closer to fulfillment, opposition becomes more strategic. Yet God's protection becomes more precise. He blocks not only direct attacks, but secondary effects. He protects your stamina, your faith, your hope, your resilience. He ensures that pressure does not become collapse. The shield adapts to the season. Invisible attacks also come through misinterpretation. The enemy attempts to twist your understanding of events to convince you that God is absent, silent, or indifferent. Divine protection guards your perception so that lies do not take root. It keeps your interpretation anchored in truth, even when you do not understand what God is doing. Protection keeps you from believing He is not doing anything at all. Faith remains intact because perception is preserved. There are people listening who have escaped situations that statistically should have ended differently. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, yet nothing happened. You made mistakes that should have cost you more, yet grace intervened. You encountered danger without consequence. These are not accidents. They are evidence of protection that blocked escalation. God's shield does not always prevent exposure, but it prevents destruction. Protection also works by exhausting the enemy's resources. Attacks lose momentum, resistance fades, opposition grows tired. When something tries repeatedly to harm you and fails every time, it eventually retreats. Divine protection creates spiritual fatigue in anything that opposes you. It forces darkness to spend energy without reward. Over time, resistance weakens not because you fought harder, but because God blocked consistently. Your destiny is not defended only at the point of arrival. It is defended throughout the journey. Every step is covered. Every transition is guarded. Every season carries its own layer of protection. God does not protect you generically. He protects you specifically. He knows where you are vulnerable and reinforces those areas. He knows what you are unaware of and guards accordingly. His protection is tailored, intentional, and continuous. There is comfort in knowing that you do not have to anticipate every threat to be safe. You do not have to see danger coming to be protected from it. God's shield operates beyond your awareness. While you focus on obedience, faithfulness, and trust, He handles what you cannot see. Protection is not your responsibility. Alignment is. The shield is already in place, already active, already intercepting, already blocking, already preserving your destiny as you move forward under his care, surrounded by a defense that never sleeps, never weakens, never hesitates, quietly standing between you and everything that was never meant to reach you, ensuring that what God has ordained for your life remains untouched, uninterrupted, and unharmed as his protection continues to operate ahead of you, around you, within you, and beyond what your eyes can perceive. When God assigns angels to your life, it is not because you are fragile. It is because your life carries divine purpose and heaven takes that purpose seriously. Angelic assignment is not random. It is intentional, ordered, and precise. Scripture reveals that angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who are heirs of salvation, which means their activity around you is not occasional, it is ongoing. Even when you are unaware, even when you are distracted, even when you are asleep, there are heavenly beings guarding, defending, and preserving what God has ordained for you. Their assignment is not driven by emotion, but by obedience to God's command concerning your life. Angels operate within the authority of God's word. And when God releases a word over your destiny, angels are dispatched to ensure that word is not interrupted. They guard paths you have not yet walked, protect doors you have not yet opened, and secure outcomes you have not yet imagined. Much of what you call coincidence is actually coordination. Heaven coordinates movement around you so that danger misses its timing, harm loses its direction, and destruction never finds alignment with your life. Angelic protection does not always feel dramatic. Often it feels like normalcy because danger was removed before it became noticeable. There are moments when you felt compelled to take a different route, to leave earlier or later than planned, to cancel something unexpectedly, or to hesitate without explanation. Those moments were not indecision, they were interventions. Angels do not only protect after danger appears, they influence timing, awareness, and positioning. They influence timing, awareness, and positioning. Sometimes they restrain you, sometimes they urge you forward, sometimes they simply stand between you and what was assigned to harm you, absorbing impact so you never feel the force of it. Angelic defense is layered. Some angels are assigned to guard your physical safety, others to guard your mind, others to guard your spiritual sensitivity. Protection is holistic because destiny is holistic. God does not only protect your body while leaving your soul exposed, he assigns angels to preserve your peace, to guard your focus, to keep your faith from collapsing under pressure. There are attacks that aim to exhaust you emotionally, to confuse you mentally, to isolate you spiritually, and the angels are actively working to stabilize. There are people who wonder how they survive seasons that should have broken them. You went through loss without losing your mind. You faced opposition without losing your faith. You endured pressure without losing your purpose. That resilience was not accidental. Angels strengthened you when you were weak, upheld you when you felt unsteady, and carried you through moments when your strength alone was not enough. Protection does not always remove the storm. Sometimes it gives you supernatural endurance within it. Angels also guard what you carry. Your calling, your gifts, your assignments, your future are protected commodities in the spirit realm. Not every environment is safe for what God has placed inside you. And angels work to limit exposure. They block access. They disrupt harmful connections. They create distance when closeness would have caused damage. Sometimes people drift away from your life not because of conflict, but because heaven relocated them. Protection sometimes feels like separation, but separation preserves purpose. There are unseen battles being fought on your behalf that you will never know about. Words spoken against you that never gained traction, plans formed that never reached execution, traps set that never activated. Angels intercept communication, confuse strategies, and dismantle assignments before they become reality. You do not hear about these victories because they are handled quietly. Heaven does not need recognition to be effective. It simply fulfills its assignment. Angels are also sent to preserve you during transition. Transitions are vulnerable seasons because old protections are gone and new patterns are not yet established. When you step into new territory, new levels, new assignments, heaven increases its involvement. Angels are reassigned, reinforcements are released, protection is intensified. That is why transitions often feel strange, emotional, or disorienting, yet you remain safe. You are being escorted through change. Angelic protection works in partnership with obedience. When you align with God's will, you align with angelic assistance. Obedience gives angels clarity of assignment. It is not that God abandons you when you struggle, but alignment allows protection to function without resistance. When you choose humility, faith, forgiveness, and trust, you create a clear pathway for heaven to work. Protection flows more freely where there is surrender. There are moments when angels intervene without your permission because your destiny requires preservation. You may make decisions that could expose you, yet mercy steps in. You may misjudge a situation, yet protection overrides consequence. This is not permission to be careless. It is evidence of God's commitment to your future. Angels are sent not because you are perfect, but because God is faithful to what He started in you. Angels also protect you from yourself. Not every threat comes from the outside. Sometimes it is your own impatience, your own fear, your own desire to rush ahead of God. Angels restrain impulses that would lead to regret. They slow you down when haste would have cost you. They influence your emotions when reactions would have damaged relationships. Protection includes internal restraint as much as external defense. There are times when you feel unexplainable peace in situations that should produce anxiety. That peace is not denial, it is the presence of angelic guardianship. Anxiety increases when you feel unprotected. Peace increases when protection is active. Your spirit senses when it is being guarded. That calm is not ignorance, it is confidence in the unseen support surrounding you. Angels are also witnesses to your obedience. They observe your faithfulness, your perseverance, your quiet acts of trust. They respond to God's instructions concerning you, and those instructions are influenced by your alignment. When you choose to trust God in uncertainty, you activate assistance you may never see, but will always benefit from. Heaven honors trust. There are dangers you walked away from without realizing how close they were. There are moments you look back on and think that could have ended differently. Those moments are evidence of angelic proximity. You were not lucky, you were guarded. Protection followed you into places you should not have been and brought you out without harm. Angels also work to preserve your testimony. There are attacks designed not just to harm you, but to discredit what God is doing through you. Protection guards your reputation, your integrity, your credibility. It ensures that mistakes do not define you, that failure does not finalize you, that setbacks do not silence you. God protects the story He is writing through your life. As you listen to this, I want you to become aware, not fearful, but grateful. Awareness strengthens faith. Gratitude deepens trust. You are not navigating life alone. Heaven is invested in your preservation. Angels are not mythical or distant. They are active, assigned, attentive. They respond to God's command concerning you. Let me ask you this, and I want you to answer it honestly in the comments because your response matters and it activates agreement in the spirit. Can you recall a moment in your life when you know without a doubt that something should have gone wrong, but it didn't? When you were spared, protected, or redirected in a way you cannot logically explain, And what did that moment teach you about God's presence over your life? Write it in the comments and share it boldly, because your testimony may strengthen someone else's faith today. As heaven continues to guard, defend, and preserve everything God has ordained for you, surrounding you with unseen help, constant watchfulness, and divine security that remains active in every step you take, every season you enter, and every promise that is still unfolding under God's faithful and unending care. Faith and obedience are not religious duties. They are spiritual structures that determine how secure your life becomes. Every time you exercise faith, you reinforce the walls around your destiny. And every time you walk in obedience, you fortify the boundaries of your protection. Protection is not random, it is relational. It responds to alignment. When you trust God beyond what you can see, and when you obey Him beyond what feels comfortable, you are actively strengthening the spiritual perimeter that guards your life. Faith positions you, obedience stabilizes you, and together they create a defense that is difficult for opposition to penetrate. Faith is not passive belief, it is active trust. It is the decision to rely on God's character when circumstances try to contradict His promises. When you choose faith, you are declaring that fear does not have authority over your thoughts, your emotions, or your decisions. That declaration matters in the spirit realm. Fear opens doors, but faith closes them. Faith becomes a shield that filters what is allowed to influence you. It does not deny reality. It interprets reality through God's truth. And when your interpretation is anchored in faith, your reactions become guarded and your life remains protected. Obedience works quietly, but it carries immense power. Obedience is often unseen by others, but it is always seen by God. When you obey God in private, you are building protection in public. Many people underestimate the protective power of simple obedience. Saying no when God says no, waiting when God says wait, moving when God says move. These decisions may feel small, but they shape your safety. Obedience keeps you within God's will. And God's will is the safest place you can be. Outside of it, exposure increases, confusion multiplies, and unnecessary battles arise. Faith strengthens your confidence in God. Obedience strengthens God's involvement in your life. When you obey, you give God permission to intervene. You are saying, I trust your judgment more than my impulses. That trust invites divine responsibility. God takes responsibility for what you surrender to Him. When you refuse to take matters into your own hands and instead submit to His direction, He assumes the role of protector. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. Obedience transfers the burden of defense from you to God. There are boundaries that God establishes not to restrict you, but to protect you. Faith allows you to believe those boundaries are good even when you do not understand them. Obedience allows you to stay within them even when you are tempted to cross them. Together, faith and obedience prevent exposure. Many people suffer not because God failed to protect them, but because they stepped outside the boundaries that protection was guarding. Protection has jurisdiction. It operates most effectively where alignment exists. Faith also guards your heart. When your heart is guarded, your reactions are measured, your words are careful, and your decisions are wise. Many attacks succeed because emotions are left unguarded. Anger opens doors. Bitterness weakens defenses. Anxiety creates gaps. Faith closes those gaps by anchoring your heart in trust. When you believe God is in control, you stop reacting impulsively. You pause, you pray, you wait. That pause alone has saved lives, relationships, destinies. Obedience guards your timing. Many threats are not about what you do, but when you do it. Being early or late can expose you unnecessarily. Obedience aligns your timing with God's wisdom. It slows you down when haste would have harmed you. It pushes you forward when delay would have cost you. Protection often manifests through correct timing. When you obey God's instruction concerning timing, you arrive when it is safe and you leave when it is wise. Faith strengthens spiritual sensitivity. When you walk by faith, you become more aware of subtle warnings, gentle nudges, and quiet checks in your spirit. That sensitivity is protective. It alerts you before danger becomes obvious. It causes you to sense when something is not right, even when everything looks fine. Faith tunes your spirit to God's voice, and God's voice often guides you away from harm before you recognize the threat. Obedience keeps your environment clean. What you allow around you affects what can access you. Obedience influences what you watch, what you listen to, who you associate with, and where you position yourself. These choices matter. Protection weakens in environments saturated with compromise. Obedience filters your surroundings, creating an atmosphere where peace thrives and danger struggles to remain. You may not see immediate consequences of compromise, but exposure accumulates quietly. Obedience prevents that accumulation. Faith also guards your expectations. When expectations are anchored in God rather than people or circumstances, disappointment loses its power. Many emotional wounds come from misplaced expectations. Faith places expectation on God's faithfulness rather than human reliability. That shift protects your heart from repeated injury. A protected heart is resilient. It recovers quickly. It does not harden or withdraw. Faith keeps your heart open without leaving it vulnerable. Obedience guards your identity. When you obey God, you affirm who you are in Him. You resist temptations that would redefine you incorrectly. Many attacks target identity because identity influences destiny. Obedience keeps you rooted in truth about who you are and whose you are. When identity is secure, manipulation loses power. Pressure weakens, threats lose their voice. Protection increases where identity remains intact. Faith and obedience also strengthen generational boundaries. Your choices affect more than you. When you live by faith and walk in obedience, you create a covering that extends beyond your own life. You establish patterns that protect those connected to you. Children benefit from boundaries they did not build. Families are spared from battles they did not initiate. Obedience builds fences that others may never notice, but will always benefit from. Faith guards your response to adversity. Obedience guards your response to opportunity. Both are equally important. Adversity tests your trust. Opportunity tests your submission. Some people survive hardship but stumble in success. Obedience ensures that success does not become exposure. It keeps you grounded when doors open quickly. It keeps you humble when influence increases. Protection must increase as blessing increases, and obedience ensures that increase happens. There are moments when obedience feels costly. You may lose relationships, opportunities, or approval. But what you lose through obedience is often what would have exposed you later. Protection sometimes requires sacrifice. Faith allows you to believe that what God removes is less valuable than what He preserves. Obedience allows you to release without resentment. That release strengthens your boundaries. Faith also stabilizes your emotions during uncertainty. When you do not know what is coming next, faith keeps you from imagining the worst. Obedience keeps you focused on what God asked you to do now. Anxiety weakens protection by pulling your attention into future fears. Faith anchors you in the present. Obedience gives you a clear step to take. Together, they keep you grounded and guarded. Protection is not about avoiding all hardship. It is about preventing unnecessary harm. Faith and obedience reduce unnecessary battles. They keep you from fighting wars you were never assigned. They keep you from carrying burdens that were not yours. Many people are exhausted not because life is heavy, but because they are carrying what obedience would have prevented. Rest returns when alignment is restored. As you continue to walk in faith and obedience, you may notice that your life becomes quieter internally, even when externally things remain busy. That quietness is protection at work. Your spirit is not constantly reacting. Your mind is not constantly racing. Peace becomes familiar. Clarity increases. Discernment sharpens. These are signs that your boundaries are strong. Faith and obedience do not make you immune to challenge, but they make you resilient. They ensure that challenge does not define you or derail you. They keep you covered while you grow, guarded while you mature, protected while you advance. The more consistent your faith becomes, the stronger your shield remains. The more deliberate your obedience becomes, the clearer your boundaries grow. Protection is not built overnight. It is reinforced daily through trust and submission. Each choice matters. Each response matters. Each act of obedience adds another layer. Each moment of faith seals another opening. Over time, those layers become a stronghold, not of isolation, but of security. You are not cut off from life. You are preserved within it. As you rest in this truth, allow your faith to breathe and your obedience to deepen. Let trust replace tension. Let submission replace striving. Let alignment replace anxiety. You are not responsible for defending yourself against everything. You are responsible for staying aligned. And as you do, the boundaries around your life continue to strengthen quietly, consistently, faithfully, holding back what does not belong, preserving what God has ordained, maintaining peace where pressure once existed, and sustaining a covering that grows stronger with every act of trust and every step of obedience you choose to take under God's watchful care. God's covering is never limited to keeping you alive. It is designed to keep your purpose intact, your future secure, and your destiny preserved. Protection that only focuses on survival would leave you breathing but broken, existing but unfulfilled, present but unproductive. God's protection is far more intentional than that. He shields what you are becoming, not just where you are right now. He guards the promise over your life, the assignment within you, the future he has already seen, and the impact he has already ordained. Long before danger shows up, God is already protecting the outcome of your life. There are moments when you wonder why certain things did not work out, why some doors closed despite your effort, why plans you were confident about fell apart unexpectedly. In hindsight, those moments often reveal themselves as protection of purpose. Not every opportunity is aligned with your assignment. Not every open door leads to fulfillment. Some paths would have taken you away from who God created you to be, and protection stepped in quietly, redirecting you without explanation. God is not obligated to explain every act of preservation, but he is committed to ensuring that your future is not compromised by temporary desires. God protects your purpose by guarding your identity. If the enemy can distort how you see yourself, he can redirect how you live. Identity confusion leads to purpose confusion. That is why so many attacks target self-worth, confidence, comparison, and insecurity. But God's covering stabilizes your identity so that external pressure does not rewrite internal truth. You may go through seasons of questioning, but you do not lose yourself. You may feel stretched, but you do not fracture. Protection keeps your core intact while you grow. Your future is not only shaped by what happens to you, but by what happens within you. God's protection works internally as much as externally. He guards your heart from becoming hardened by disappointment. He guards your spirit from becoming cynical after betrayal. He guards your hope from being extinguished by delay. A future filled with purpose requires a heart that can still believe, still love, still trust. Protection ensures that hardship does not poison your inner life. You may be wounded, but you are not ruined. You may be delayed, but you are not destroyed. There are people who survived things that should have altered the trajectory of their lives permanently. Trauma that could have defined them, failure that could have ended their confidence, loss that could have stolen their joy. Yet somehow they emerged still believing, still hoping, still moving forward. That is not resilience alone. That is preservation. God protected their future by not allowing their pain to become their identity. He allowed healing to take root where bitterness could have grown. He allowed wisdom to form where resentment could have settled. God's protection also preserves timing. Purpose unfolds in seasons, and premature exposure can damage what is meant to mature. There are blessings that would have overwhelmed you if they arrived too early. There are responsibilities that would have crushed you before you were ready to carry them. God protects your future by delaying what you want until you are prepared to steward it. Delay is not denial. It is defense. Timing is one of the most underestimated forms of protection. There are relationships God shields you from because they would have altered your direction. Not every connection is safe for your future. Some people would have drained your energy, distorted your vision, or diverted your focus. God protects your purpose by filtering access to your life. Sometimes he removes people quietly. Sometimes he allows distance to grow naturally. Sometimes he reveals incompatibility over time. These separations are not punishment, they are preservation. You do not lose what you need. You lose what would have cost you more later. God's covering also protects you from success that comes without sustainability. Sudden elevation without foundation can be as dangerous as prolonged struggle. Protection ensures that growth does not outpace character. It ensures that influence does not exceed maturity. It ensures that opportunity does not arrive before wisdom. A protected future is not rushed. It unfolds at a pace that strengthens rather than overwhelms. God would rather build you slowly than promote you prematurely. Purpose is protected through process. The process shapes you, strengthens you, humbles you, refines you. Without protection, the process would crush you. With protection, the process develops you. God shields you from carrying more than you can bear while still allowing enough pressure to produce growth. He knows exactly how much exposure is beneficial and how much would be destructive. That balance is not accidental. It is intentional preservation. God's protection also guards your decision making. One wrong decision can alter years of progress. Protection often shows up as restraint. You feel checked, you hesitate, you pause, you reconsider. That restraint saves you from choices that would have cost you deeply. Sometimes God protects your future by not letting you get what you asked for. Sometimes unanswered prayers are the greatest evidence of divine care. They're environments God shields you from because they would have normalized compromise. Being surrounded by the wrong influences can slowly erode values, convictions, and clarity. Protection relocates you emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically. It places you where growth is encouraged, not threatened. You may feel lonely for a season, but that solitude protects your integrity. You may feel unseen, but that anonymity protects your focus. God also protects your future by preserving your faith. Faith is essential for purpose to unfold. Without faith, vision fades. Without faith, perseverance weakens. Without faith, hope collapses. Attacks against faith are attacks against destiny. God guards your faith by surrounding you with reminders of his goodness, moments of reassurance, and encounters that restore trust. Even when your faith feels small, it remains intact because protection keeps it alive. Protection does not mean your future will be free of challenge. It means challenge will not cancel your calling. It means obstacles will not outrank purpose. It means detours will not erase destiny. God protects the outcome even when the route changes. You may take unexpected paths, but you do not arrive empty-handed. Everything you need for what is ahead is preserved along the way. God's covering also extends to restoration. Even when something is lost, damaged, or delayed, protection ensures it is not beyond recovery. God redeems time. He restores confidence. He rebuilds what was broken. A protected future includes restoration of what was impacted along the journey. Nothing that belongs to your purpose is wasted. Even mistakes become teachers. Even detours add depth. Protection ensures that nothing is beyond redemption. There are seasons when you feel behind, when you compare your progress to others and question your pace. Protection often looks like slow progress that prevents burnout, pride, or collapse. Your journey is not delayed, it is customized. God is not racing you toward an outcome, He is preparing you for sustainability. A future worth stepping into requires preparation worth waiting for. God's protection preserves your capacity to receive what is coming. Blessings require capacity. Responsibility requires strength. Purpose requires endurance. Protection develops your capacity quietly. You become wiser without realizing it. You become stronger without noticing the growth. You become more discerning without trying. That gradual development ensures that when the future arrives, you are not overwhelmed by it. There are moments when you look back and realize how different your life could have been if certain things had worked out the way you wanted. Those realizations are not regrets. They are revelations. They reveal how much God was protecting you. What felt like disappointment was actually deliverance. What felt like loss was actually prevention. What felt like delay was actually preparation. God's covering also preserves your peace. A future without peace is not worth reaching. Peace keeps you grounded as life accelerates. Protection ensures that success does not cost you your soul, your health, or your relationships. God values your wholeness more than your speed. He guards your emotional well-being because emotional health sustains purpose long term. Purpose is not fragile, but it is sacred. God guards what is sacred. He protects your future from sabotage, both external and internal. He shields you from becoming someone you were never meant to be in pursuit of something you were never meant to have. Protection keeps you aligned with your true assignment, not a counterfeit version shaped by pressure or comparison. As you move forward, even when you cannot see the full picture, trust that your future is being guarded. Trust that your purpose is being preserved. Trust that delays are working for you. Trust that detours are still under divine supervision. You are not wandering unprotected. You are being led deliberately. God's covering surrounds not just your present, but every step ahead, every promise yet to unfold, every version of you that is still becoming, every season still ahead, quietly ensuring that what He started in you reaches its intended completion, untouched by what tried to interrupt it, sustained by grace, preserved by wisdom, and secured by a protection that remains active over your life, your calling, and your future as you continue forward under His watchful care. Beloved, as we come into this sacred closing moment, allow your spirit to rest in the truth that you are not exposed, you are not forgotten, and you are not walking alone. What has been spoken is not merely encouragement, it is alignment. Heaven has heard, heaven has responded, and heaven is already active on your behalf. Let peace settle where tension once lived, and let assurance rise where uncertainty once tried to take root. Take a deep breath and release the need to control what God has already committed Himself to guard. You were never meant to carry the weight of protection alone. The burden you have been holding, the vigilance that has exhausted you, the constant sense of needing to stay alert can now be laid down. God does not sleep, and what He watches over does not slip through His hands. Even as this prayer concludes, the work of protection continues. God's shield does not turn off when words end. It remains active in your coming and your going, in your waking and your resting, in the seen and the unseen. You may not feel a dramatic shift, but you will notice a quiet confidence beginning to grow, a steady calm replacing anxiety, a sense of being held rather than hurried. There are answers that will come later, and there are explanations God will never need to give. Some things will make sense in hindsight. Others will remain mysteries covered by mercy. Trust does not require understanding. It requires surrender. And today you have surrendered fear, control, and uncertainty into hands far more capable than your own. Let your heart stay soft. Let your spirit remain open. Do not allow past battles to convince you that danger is always waiting. You are not living under threat. You are living under covering. The same God who protected you before you knew how to pray is still protecting you now that you do. As you move forward from this moment, pay attention to the subtle shifts. Notice the clarity where confusion once lingered. Notice the restraint where impulsiveness once ruled. Notice the peace that arrives without explanation. These are signs that protection is not just surrounding you, it is shaping you. You may still face challenges, but you will face them differently. You will not panic as quickly. You will not assume the worst. You will pause, breathe, and remember that you are shielded. Confidence will replace fear, not because circumstances changed, but because your perspective did. Carry this awareness with you into your conversations, your decisions, your rest, and your planning. You do not need to announce that you are protected. You simply live from that place. Protection becomes evident not through noise, but through stability. If emotions rise later, return to this truth. If fear tries to revisit, remind your soul that it has already been addressed. If uncertainty whispers, answer it with trust. You are not trying to earn protection, you are living from it. And as you continue your journey, may your days be marked by peace, your nights by rest, your steps by wisdom, and your heart by confidence, knowing that you are covered, guarded, preserved, and surrounded by a divine shield that does not weaken, does not fail, and does not lift, remaining over you now and always as you walk forward in trust and quiet assurance.